Okay, so this last bit, what we're really asking is like, are these things even that important? Like, do people really, really care about local public goods, or is there something else that they are paying for? So, presumably areas that offer better public goods are going to have higher housing prices. Um, but is there something really else that people are actually paying for with these housing prices? Maybe they're just paying for, um, you know, being near other rich people. Maybe when you choosing where you live, you just want to be near other well-off people, just because I don't know, it's nicer. Just the cars are nicer, nicer to socialize with, whatever. Okay. Um, okay. And so, so the model, so not the model, but just the assumptions are, if households are shopping, the municipalities that offer better public goods should see higher housing prices. Um, and so, do is this the case? And is this what they are actually paying for? Are the higher housing prices actually there because of the public goods? Okay. And so we do see this. The housing prices are higher where there's nice parks, where the medical services are more efficient, and biggest with school quality. Obviously, where the schools are good, the housing prices are a lot higher. And as I said, well, maybe this is just correlation. Maybe what's going on here is the rich people just like to live in rich people. Therefore, the housing prices are higher. Therefore, the property taxes are higher. And so all these things are better. Okay. There are some big assumptions there, that basically higher property taxes leads to better provision, like more efficiency. Again, we'll kind of unpack that in an education lecture, whether actually, more spending actually equals higher school quality, but let's just assume for the sake of this lecture that it does. So one way to test this, just to say, are people really paying, when they're paying for high housing prices, are they really paying for better public goods? Is that really the reason? Or do they just want to be in the neighborhood near other wealthy people or similar income people? What is going on? The test of this comes from Leah Buston, who her test is she's looking at two homes right next to each other. Okay. So she's basically looking at houses along this green line. The implication being, if people are just paying to live near rich people, there should be no difference in these home prices along this line. You're in the same neighborhood, the line just goes right down next to your house. So in many cases, there's houses right next to each other. The line goes right near them. So, is that the case? If the case is they're just paying to be in the same neighborhood as other rich people, we shouldn't see any difference. If they're paying because the public goods are different, then we should see a difference, because Evanston has different public goods than Chicago, has better public goods. Essentially here, this is all school quality. Schools are much better than Evanston than in Chicago. Okay. All right. So that's basically what she's doing. If you're interested in the actual empirical research design, it's called regression discontinuity. And what she sees is there is actually differences in home prices. Okay. That this town has higher, the Evanston town has higher home prices. Okay. Which is basically what she finds is there's a $10,000 increase in median school income associated with a 7% increase in home prices. Okay. So basically the home prices are 7% higher. She finds most of this is due to school quality. All right. And as somebody who just bought a house right next to the line of where one's in one district, one's in a much worse district, I can tell you this is still the case. There's a difference as you cross that line. Although in the present, it's much easier to get into good school districts than it was in the past. In the past, it used to be pretty hard. In the present, it's much easier to like lottery in, or petition in, or forge an address in, all these things, which I may or may not have explored. Okay, lastly, that we're going to speak briefly about is other aspects of the neighborhood. So we covered, so what we covered is kind of local public goods, kind of the theory of it, what's the optimal, how do we actually get to the amount with median voter? Is it actually real? Is this thing that people are actually paying for? The answer seems like a yes, at least in the case of school quality. Now we're going to look at kind of other neighborhood amenities. So you think of each neighborhood has certain characteristics. You have the canals in Venice. You have these big old mansions in Beverly Hills, which are a function of the lot sizes. They have bigger lot sizes. In the valley, kind of these were suburban developments, planned development, so all the houses kind of look the same. Um, where I live, or where I used to live in Long Beach, that was the case. Each house was like exactly the same when they were built. Um, you think of the Hollywood Hills, obviously that has its own characteristic because the hills. Um, and so, where do these neighborhood amenities come from? A lot of times they are historic. They're based on some sort of historical accident or historical, quirk. The farmers market being, example that they essentially, Third and Fairfax, this began as a local farmers market, just as a place where the farmers would gather to kind of share their wares. It grows and grows, and today it's still kind of a farmers market. It's the Grove, and this is like a historical legacy. We can kind of break these down, and most of the time they're hard to change. Beach, you're near the beach. Weather, these are things that are kind of fixed and constant. Sometimes they're the product of history, as I mentioned. Kind of this farmers market is the product of history. Sports team, where the sport team is located, just the original, basically built up space. You think of like density in LA. A lot of the density in LA that exists was because it was originally dense. Like places that are really, really dense in LA are traditionally were actually near trolley lines. When the trolley was destroyed, those places still remained dense. So these are again like products of history. And then finally zoning. So we covered zoning in depth. So these are kind of the factors that are going to give neighborhoods their certain characteristics. Now, neighborhoods may try to actively change their characteristics by, either coming up with large developments, building up certain types of parks, allocating the space for a park, stadiums. You could think of near LMU. There's like the man, it have been so long since I've been to LMU. The area down from LMU, Marina something. I don't. It's not Marina Del Rey. There's like an area down from LMU that was like built recently. It used to be. It used to be like Hughes Aircraft or something, bought out, and it was developed in a certain way. It was kind of a planned development, and now it has a certain character based on that development, which has a mixture of parks, denser housing that we usually see in LA, and a mixture of retail space. And that you would expect that to then persist. Now, the most salient neighborhood characteristics are schools and crime, really the things people most care about when you're moving into a neighborhood. At least maybe not when you're a student. When you're moving into a neighborhood as a family, you care about the schools and you care about the crime. We will deal with these more in depth later in the course.